today we'll be reading out another review for The Brain of Morbius from the DWRG. This is titled simply A Review, probably the default title unless you change it. From Richard Radcliffe, this is from the 28th of the 3rd, 01. This story forms one of my most abiding images of my childhood. As a fascinated 7-year-old, I watched with my granddad as this horrific monstrous creation of Solon stood poised to attack the blind Sarah Jane. The credits rolled and I had to wait a week to find out whether or not Sarah Jane was okay. So is the power of the cliffhanger. Watching the story again recently brings lots of good memories from my childhood. Brain of Morbius is also one of the first Target books I bought and read. It became a firm favourite, it remains so to this day. Its gothic interiors formed a strong lasting image in my mind when I was 7. I was unfamiliar with such adult stories as Dracula or Frankenstein. It was the first time I had experienced that kind of dark gothic horror. I remember seeing Frankenstein a few years later and thinking, they've pinched this from Brain of Morbius. The innocence of childhood is a wonderful thing. I love a good gothic horror adventure. It's my favourite backdrop on which to tell a tale. Most of my favourite books, including Who books, are of that kind. It all stems from Brain of Morbius. So how does it hold up for a more experienced 32-year-old? Actually very well indeed. From the moment the Doctor and Sarah Jane arrive on Karn, we are flung into a wonderfully rich setting. Lightning streaks across the sky. They gaze up and spy a dark, huge, ramshackle house at the tops of the cliffs. Nearby, the sisterhood of Karn perform their strange rituals. Their whispered chants echo throughout the caverns. Sacred flame, sacred fire. If DW is about creating an evocative atmosphere, then Brain of Morbius has it in spades. This is a story rich in characters and atmosphere. Solon is terrific, one of the great DW villains. Morbius is fantastic, that almost Dalek voice matching the mismatch of a body he now has. It's a story rich with senses that live in the memory. The aforementioned blind Sarah Jane with Morbius towering behind her. The sisterhood dancing around the funeral pyre that contains the Doctor. Solon betraying his servant. Sarah Jane stumbling blindly over the Karn landscape with the cliff nearby. Brain of Morbius is a story that has not aged in 25 years. It stands up just as well now as it did back in 1975. You have the best Doctor, the best companion, great villains, a wonderfully imaginative setting. I still like it as much now as I did when I was 7.